Thanks everyone for welcoming and supporting our best nerd, and to Wendy. So we're next turning to a discussion around what some might call hygiene, but that word isn't always the preferred word either. One of the recommendations from the task force was to develop a plain language set of recommendations, in particular to support small and medium-sized enterprises. That effort, we were pleased to partner with a few organizations, including most notably the Center for Internet Security, Resilience, and the Global Cyber Alliance, among others. Last August, actually, we published the Blueprint for Ransomware Defense, and we're pleased to open up a panel discussion about the blueprint and the shifting cyber insurance market. The panel will be moderated by Davis Hake, and I think he's going to let the panelists introduce themselves. So please join me in welcoming Davis and the panel.
Let's see. How long does it take the mic to come on? Just like 3 seconds. There we go. And I have to turn it off. There you go.
Testing.
It's an incredibly tough act to follow, the incredible generosity of Craig. And so I think it's just worth another round of applause for all that Craig has done for the cybersecurity community. I have been tangentially involved in a number of amazing public policy efforts since I left the government, and I'm pretty sure all of them have been funded and supported by not just Craig's generosity, but also his insight and his forward-looking vision. When he says that he is a man who is in the right time at the right place, that is certainly an understatement as he continues to support the core infrastructure of the internet. So a big thank you to Craig, wherever he is. I also just wanted to acknowledge the public officials that all spoke today. I left the administration in 2014, and it is phenomenal to see the caliber of leaders that we have, like Kemba, who are taking the reins and taking a lot of the conversations that were highly controversial about public-private cooperation or about a civilian lead for setting cybersecurity policy, and they're now represented today by groups like IST that are making a real difference with the Ransomware Task Force. So a big thank you. If there are any still U.S. government personnel in the audience who aren't off busy fighting fire somewhere, a big thank you to you as well. My name is Davis Hake. I'm one of the co-founders of Resilience Insurance. I am losing my voice because I've had the unlucky chance this year of having RSA be followed up by the largest insurance conference this week. So I've been doing nothing but speaking, and I am certainly at the best for last. So this is my last event of the past 2 weeks. I'm going to try and make it through. And I fully understand that cyber insurance at the end of an incredibly long and interesting day may not seem like the most interesting topic, but I guarantee you it is. Not only that, but this group up here has put together an amazing tool. I think all of our physical copies of the blueprint ran out, which that right there is a great metric of engagement. But one of the things that I did want to say before I set us up is an observation that I had from these past 2 weeks at both RSA and an insurance conference. The number one buzzword at RSA, other than ChatGPT or generative AI, was zero trust. And zero trust this, zero trust that. And one of the things that I found so critically interesting about zero trust is that the discussion is not about really a technology, but it's about reframing security along risk lines. And that is exactly the conversation that the insurance industry is trying to grapple their head around. It's reframing the conversation not just from implementing an individual control, but to actually looking at how you are limiting loss, limiting damage, and ultimately making companies safer. And when we set out to build the blueprint, as Megan said, we wanted a clear, simple guideline that not only had usable ransomware advice, but prioritized it based on things that we could tell would keep companies safer and would be actually implementable by the core victims that we really saw being targeted by the adversary successfully. And I think this idea of aligning all of these complex kitchen sink security controls into a risk-based priority is the exact right thinking. And it's, I think, a lot of where now we're starting to hear the security industry go. And I really think it's the right time and the right place. And I just want to say thank you as we kick it off to our other panelists for their personal involvement in driving this forward. So as we get kicked off, I'll pass it over to our other panelists to give a quick introduction. But why don't we start all the way down at Aaron, and then we'll work our way back.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully the mic's going through. My name is Aaron McIntosh. I'm about a 20-year veteran of the telecom and cybersecurity industry and current free agent, as many of my peers are in the sector. Luckily, I was brought on with the Ransomware Task Force a year or so ago with the company I was with, Axe0, Managed Detection and Response Provider. We stepped in because we were seeing a lot of people in the industry coming to us. They're asking for our services, MDR, detection response services, but they didn't have a good foundation of protection or ransomware defense. So we saw the opportunity to jump in on this, and I became a firm believer. I've always been a supporter of small and medium-sized businesses. I'll scream it from every rooftop in the nation and in Canada as well, where I'm from. And I see a huge opportunity to take this and help them. We've got so many questions to get to. I'll pass it on down the line.
Thanks, Aaron. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Valecia Stocchetti. I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer for the Center for Internet Security. The blueprint is actually based on the CIS controls, which is the team that I work on. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the blueprint and cybersecurity insurance. So I will keep it brief and pass it to Ross.
I am not part of the blueprint group. I am not a big international mover and shaker like many of the esteemed professionals I've heard today. I'm very honored to have been given an opportunity to be here and learn. I've learned a lot already, including that Megan's a lawyer. And what I am here to do is, besides thanking IST and RTF for what you do, because I'm very, very passionate about what you do, I'm also passionate about CIS and have been for years. I represent who all of you are trying to make a difference for. I'm representing kind of a grassroots segment. I am a professional risk manager, and I do risk management and insurance consulting in Michigan for public entities, with my principal expertise being higher education. Higher education is one of those sectors very challenged right now for ransomware. We've had 4 attacks just in Michigan in the last 6 months or so. And right now, despite all the risks of higher education, cyber and right now ransomware is the biggest risk we have. So I've been trying really hard to help our members find resources to help them make progress on their cyber hygiene. When I decided to deal with ransomware, I found the blueprint, fell in love, contacted Aaron, who contacted Valecia. They both presented to my group. I'm here trying again to represent a grassroots perspective on what they're doing. As passionate as they are and I am about what you do at the big, large level, I'm equally passionate about trying to make progress at the grassroots level, beginning with the people I serve, and perhaps there'll be an opportunity for me to spread the word. The work you do is incredible, and it needs to penetrate, and I'm here to do what little I can.
Well, thank you, Ross, and we appreciate you letting us drag you up here, even though you have no requirement like Valecia and Aaron do. I want to kick it off a little bit and talk about what we mentioned and why we decided to put together yet another list of ransomware advice or guidance. CISA has an incredible repository, Stop Ransomware. I think everyone on TechTarget has their own solution for ransomware list. Valecia, can you kick this off? And from the CIS standpoint, what attracted you to being a part of this effort?
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't probably properly introduce myself. I used to work for the MSI-SAC, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. And for 4 years, I served as their computer emergency response team manager. So I, like Ross, have seen firsthand what happens when state and local governments get hit with ransomware and any other kind of attack, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for me, this blueprint is really, obviously it's Its underpinning is the CIS critical security controls. It's one of the things we did with the CIS controls is we figured out that it wasn't feasible to ask people to implement 153 safeguards right off the rip without giving them any kind of prioritization or place to start. And so our first crack at that was doing the implementation groups. We have IG 1, 2, and 3. IG 1 is essential cyber hygiene. These are the things that every company should be doing no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're a Fortune 500 or if you're a mom and pop shop, you should just be doing these things on the regular. So taking inventory of your devices, having an incident response plan and things like that. And so what the blueprint did is it took a subset of those IG1 safeguards, and it's 40 of them, and it basically said, these are the things you need to do to protect yourself against ransomware specifically. And that's actually also underpinned by some work that I did in the community defense model with CIS, where we actually took that data, translated it to the blueprint, and determined that 70% of the attack techniques that are associated with ransomware can be defended if you implement the blueprint, which is a huge thing to be able to drive it behind data rather than just saying it's another good list of things to do. Like my my colleague Tony Sager always likes to say is the fog of war, right? Everyone's being hit with so many things coming at their face. You leave a conference and you're blue in the face with resources, and then you go home and you're like, great, so now where do I start? So that was a very long-winded response, but hopefully very descriptive of why, I'm passionate about the blueprint.
That's a wonderful response, Felicia, and we are the panel, so we get to give long-winded, wonderful responses like that. Aaron, you can be considered a power user, I would say, of security controls, and not just a power user, but have detailed experience in applying them for the exact type of victim organizations that the task force identified as most need for these. What were some of your thoughts? You were heavily involved in some of the prioritization and putting controls together. How did you work through the logic of building this thing?
I think that a lot of the logic really came down to what were we seeing in attacks? Like, what were those low-lying fruit that we could knock off? Where were there free toolkits available? A lot of the conversation has been around organizations can't afford, they're resource restrained, they're poor. In some cases that's financial, sometimes it's simply resources. But there's so many great tools, and we'll get into this a little bit later. There's so many great toolkits that are out there that are available, they're affordable, they're already in the solutions you've bought, you simply need to enable them. We had organizations coming to us that hadn't done the basics. So we'd constantly say, our service is only as good as the work that you put into it. Great, we can detect it, but it's more important to have blocked it so we never have to spend the time to detect it and respond to it. Over the last couple of weeks, I was invited by a VCSO who was working with not-for-profits in the Toronto area. And he said, I need some help talking to them. I need some help getting through to them. And I brought up the blueprint. And he said to me, Aaron, this blueprint's absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, some of these organizations are running laptops that are on outdated Microsoft OS. They're years old, and you want to talk to them about multi-factor authentication and backups. He's like, how about you come in and let's listen to them and understand. So that's one of my next tasks is to actually take the blueprint in, understand what they've done, and walk through it with them very slowly. Look at understand their organizations and not make it prescriptive that you must do these 40 safeguards. If you can do 6 of them, that's 6 more than you had done 2 months ago. And look, here's 50 different free toolkits that can help you. It's not all about big budgets. So.
Yeah, and I just add, from an insurance perspective, right? When we got into cyber insurance as a bunch of security nerds, to steal a phrase from the last panel, we were like, well, where's the engineering standards, right? Like, property insurance has building codes, auto insurance has crash test standards. Where are the building codes for cyber? And we have these amazing frameworks of risk, and we have the kitchen sink list of controls, but where's the thing that says, this is the ransomware agreed upon building code? And initially, when we were working with the task force, that was a big thought, like, hey, we need to build the building codes for ransomware. And as we started working and really also talking to our own insureds, not all of which experience the problems that Wendy did of complete cyber poverty, but a lot of them struggling with what to do with their initial first budget as they grow into a mid-sized organization. Where's that priority? Where's that first dollar go that's going to have the most direct impact for their unique environment? And that prioritization, we realized working on this, was the key value add, is for these organizations that help to apply money and financing and investment against buying down that risk is a critical and I would argue almost, heretical way of thinking in security, where, we often jump to, like you said, oh my God, we got to start thinking about identity access management immediately. Like we got to start thinking about, how can we afford and save up for that EDR, right? When in reality, like there's larger structural things or even avoiding certain risks that we don't often think about as security professionals. And that's where I think it was pretty amazing, some of the work that you guys especially did in helping prioritize it. I wanted to also ask a little bit, Ross, to you about, your work in insurance and in other lines and guides that you help your customers. How does the framework differ, or how is it similar to other types of guides or frameworks that you work in with your customers?
Well, it's not. And the main reason is because it's new and evolving. The risk is new. Well, it's not that new, but it's always evolving, as everybody knows. And as you just mentioned, there is no Bible or roadmap exactly that's welcome as a standard by all. One of the things I found with my group is the blueprint is brilliant work, first of all, because most of my CIOs and CISOs that I work with in my public community colleges principally understand the need to use frameworks, but there's different frameworks. Most of them use, some use NIST, some are using CIS controls, some are using other frameworks. But what's universally true, and this is where the situation is different, insurance companies can't hand out risk control checklists that are helpful because they don't have them yet. But that's part of what Blueprint does. The biggest challenge for my clients is that they all know what they want to do. They have chief executives, their presidents or chancellors who, if you ask, what is your risk tolerance for ransomware or cyber? They'll universally answer 0. Now, how do you like to be that CISO? Okay, or that CIO? That's trouble. Yet, even with that, with that attitude, there is still an overwhelming task, and the public sector and especially higher education is under-resourced. They're really struggling for resources all the time, and COVID really put a big damper on it. That just killed enrollment. So I have IT departments ranging from 2 to 5. The average is probably 2. It's hard. And it's not only money, which is hard. It's time and it's lack of personnel. With the overwhelming nature of what's going on, even with the frameworks, the question is, and this is what Blueprint addresses so brilliantly, is, oh my God, there's so much to do. How do I even start? It's what I hear all the time. And initially we started promoting CIS controls because the controls, even the earlier versions, I go all the way back to the SANS days, presented some priorities in terms of what to approach that other formats didn't. What 8 is even better with the IGs. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. And Blueprint is just so timely, but maybe in some cases a little late. This is something that I'm seeing. It's timely because ransomware is on everyone's mind. Everyone's talking about it because everyone's getting attacked. That's the good news about ransomware. This is the one cyber thing that's got everybody paying attention. It's in the news. So now people are paying attention. But some of my clients, they look at ransomware our lead authors, Valecia and Aaron here, presented to my group, and they love the thing, but they didn't know about it. And some have already expressed that they're already on their way doing other things. Oh, I wish I knew about this 2 years ago. Nothing we can do. But even with ransomware, even with the blueprint, as amazing as it is, some of my members are still finding it overwhelming. There's still so much, and they have the same limitations with resources. They're looking for more help. But this is the best product I've seen. I think everybody needs to know about it. And I think one opportunity for the Blueprint team and RTF is to find a way to get even broader awareness of this tool.
Valecia, one of the aspects that Ross has touched on is communication. What we have found, and I think one of the lessons we all talked about, was that if you just have the security leader involved in making these decisions, getting budget, actually implementing projects, making the trade-off with operation requirements is impossible. You are an operational security leader. Do you mind talking about some of your thoughts into how we tackled some of the translation piece into trying to build this to be a little bit more digestible, I guess, to what we'd lovingly refer to as the money people?
Yeah, I mean, I've had my fair share of experience with literally being on the phone with CISOs and network admins, and the person being somebody from completely on the outside having to convince them to shut down their network, which is really terrifying when you think about it, because here I am, they don't know me, but because of the organization I work for, they trust me more than the actual people that are putting their hands on the keyboard. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they should shut down their network if they had an emotet infection. But anyways, that's beside the point. But I think the one thing is, we all know that executive buy-in is a difficult thing to do. Ross, you touched on the resources part of it, and that is part of the problem, right? Even if you have the leadership buy-in, you need the resources and the time to do it. And if you have two people, and let me ask you a question, Ross, do you have two people in just IT and cyber? Like they moonlight as both, basically?
Yeah, I'm sure they do, because I know they don't sleep.
Right. And so if you have two people servicing an entire college that's dealing with IT and cyber, we know as practitioners that you can't do both well, right? I can't watch my 3-year-old and go cook dinner well at the same time. I cannot do two of those things at the same time well. And so it's kind of crazy, right? Like Davis touched on the fact that the insurance agent or industry has standards, right? You build a pool, you put a fence around it, you put a lock on it, and you better make sure that it's proven that you have both of those. But if we don't have those kinds of things in cyber, then it's up to our people that we employ to convince leadership that we need to do these things, right? Or people like me to write these pieces and say, we should be doing these things because of X, Y, Z. So I'm sorry, I'm going around in a circle, but I get really passionate about this. But I think the bottom line is that we need to be realistic and honest with our leadership, right? If something's going to cost money, we need to explain that it's going to cost money. Security isn't free, right? It is not free. We can have all the free tools that we want in the world. It still costs time and money, or it still costs money because of time and people. And so that's an important thing. I'm actually working on a project currently where I'm assessing the cost of implementing IG1 of the controls. And we're getting ready this year to publish that. And I think it's going to be really transformative in the industry, because no framework has really put a price tag to implementing a framework. We've all done a great job at putting a price tag to how much it costs to recover from an incident, right? It's easy to say that XYZ organization got hit by a ransomware or whatever cyber attack, and now we need to put the proactive things in place after the fact. The problem is that we shouldn't be doing this after the fact, right? If you get hit by a car, now is not the time to prepare so you don't get hit by the car again. You need to do it before that happens. And so I think that's the problem in the industry, is that we have to get it before it actually is happening. And we're, like Ross said, we're just playing catch up. We're just trying to stay afloat in some regards. Yeah, so I could go on, but
Oh, well said. Aaron, from the solutions side, I know one of the things that we talked about when we were trying to figure out, what does the tool look like? Is it a checklist type set? Is it an Excel spreadsheet? And we landed on, it's more of a narrative that you helped a lot in. Do you mind give us some of your thoughts about, why we constructed it in more of a narrative, digestible style?
A lot of it came down to plain term language. If we looked at the audience that we were trying to get to, we were trying to hit the small, medium-sized businesses. Presenting them with yet another checklist wasn't going to do anything for them. And we could even put a number of the priority, but what it didn't, a lot of the controls, and CIS has done actually a fantastic job of doing this, especially in CIS 8.0. But what we did is took a step back and said, let's explain the groupings. Let's explain what foundational versus actionable really means, that you need to put things in place, that you need to follow a certain conditional order, but that you have that freedom to jump around a little bit. And we actually called that right out at the end, saying you don't need to follow an order, you can jump around. But we used language. We talked about the impact of doing something or not doing something. And here's why this control is important. Here's what it protects you against. These are the steps that you can take to enable that. But we did stop there. And part of what we're hearing back from the market is, this is great direction. We still need more. So part of our conversation is, do we need to break out and do sessions or documents on each of these 40 safeguards individually, talk about the use cases, talk about the success stories, talk about the implementation. We did stop short of implementation guidance. That was something we toyed with, but we wanted to make sure that we had a certain level, a certain voice of authority without becoming technical, because we do know that the implementation would be done by many people. In some cases, it could be done by the business themselves. It could be done by their local IT guy or IT person. It could be brought in by a big consulting firm. So we simply provided some tips and tricks to help get there. But we do have a lot to do in terms of promotion, breaking it out further, making it even simpler. That could mean some demos. We're not sure what that's going to look like, but there'll be more to come. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and I really thought that was, it seems like such a small thing. Oh, let's expand, let's discuss, and let's have a narrative. But it was really deliberate as well to think, if you're looking to build a budget justification and you're the security stucky, right? You're stuck with the security problem, and you're asked to justify why the heck am I deploying MFA? You can go in there, reach out, pull out the language that's very digestible, non-technical, to explain what this control does for the business and what its actual impact is. And as an insurance company, when we started building the insurance company around a bunch of security nerds, we found that translation to incredibly talented underwriters was one of the biggest things that we needed to focus on early on. It's how do we take the scanning and stuff and explain it to underwriters so that they could translate it in their head to what they knew about risk. And operationally, we've seen this be very powerful as we address it with customers as well. The same approach that we did in the blueprint, we will talk to CFOs or general counsels when we meet with them, and it's led to a dramatic reduction in actual ransomware payments because the whole team understands, okay, we do need to actually test our backups. When we do have an extortion, we need to address it appropriately. And so I think it has, even just for that idea of how do you speak to the audience about security, is one of the more powerful things that we can probably do. Ross, do you mind talking a little bit about how you've seen the cyber insurance industry react to kind of the ransomware threat and explosion over the past 3 years?
Sure. Actually, I have a few notes on this. I could probably go half a day on it. So instead, I'm just going to hit a bunch of bullet points because there's a lot that the insurance industry has done, some of which is obvious, some of which is a little less obvious. The first thing I wanted to mention is, despite the proliferation of ransomware with increasing frequency and severity, the industry is not collapsing like many expected would happen. In fact, quite the opposite. Very recently, in the last couple of years in particular, there's been a lot of premium growth, a lot of earned premium growth. And the reason is the risks are increasing along with the fact that insureds or would-be insureds are becoming more and more and more aware and afraid of those risks. The other thing is, despite the losses in the earlier days, insurance companies have an appetite for the risk. Let's remember, insurance companies are in the risk business. There's a lot of premium to be earned in this business. It's the fastest growing sector of the property casualty insurance market that there is. Nothing's even close right now. So insurers want to exploit that, but they have to do it in a way where they can keep some of that money for themselves. And that's where the changes are. So markets, I know I can do this. Really? All I want to do is switch. Seriously? I can't believe that. There we go. I can't even believe that happened. I'm so sorry. You know, the market is stabilizing in part because those premiums are increasing faster right now than are the losses. And so that's helping the underwriting and overall profitability of the insurers. But what are they doing to protect themselves? What we've seen is higher premiums, of course, higher deductibles and retentions. So insureds are required to pay more of the cost of the losses, which from the insured standpoint is, I wish I didn't have to do that. But as a practical matter, it puts skin in the game for the insureds. It makes them realize, well, if you don't want to pay it, you got to do more to control your losses. Lower limits. I mean, we saw that happen the last couple of years. You might have had $5 million, and then at your next renewal, you had $2 million if you were lucky. Sublimits. Not all cyber risk is a really horrible thing for insurers, but certain segments are. Ransomware. So what some insurance companies are doing is placing sublimits on these problem lines like ransomware. So perhaps they provide $5 million overall coverage, but for ransomware, they're only going to provide 2 or 1, maybe only a half. It depends on the insurers. We're also seeing talk about exclusions. Again, cyber is still fairly new, and we're finding losses or experiencing losses that we haven't had before. Particularly concerning are the very broad ones like NotPetya was, which was billions of dollars, and found insurance companies looking at it like a war risk and trying to avoid having to pay losses by saying it's excluded. I won't get into those details, but lawsuits have gone a couple of different ways. And the result right now is cyber insurers and Lloyd's are now moving to put exclusions or clarifications in their policies to indicate that, we're not going to pay for those kinds of risks, particularly if it's from state actors. Cyber hygiene prerequisites. Just for eligibility, before you can even provide an application to be considered by an insurance company, more and more companies are requiring certain minimum levels of cyber hygiene. Usually they're not overly crazy, but they'll include things like multi-factor authentication, backup strategies, patching strategies, etc. That's good because it encourages progress on loss control, and it's bad for those who don't do it because they can't get the coverage. Insurance companies are very concerned about systemic risk, as are governments, because the bad actors are targeting critical infrastructure, supply chains, both hardware and software. There's been talk earlier about the software side and concerns about decentralization, etc. But here's something you don't hear a lot about. Cyber insurance companies themselves have systemic risk concerns internally. First of all, insurance companies have tons of data, making them a very attractive target for bad actors. Turns out they got a lot of money too, usually. So there is that. But imagine for a moment, not only is there the risk to the insurance company that we don't talk about, imagine the large cyber insurer successfully being attacked and shut down for any period of time. Is an impact not only on that company, but an impact potentially on everyone they insure and a potential impact for the entire industry. It's a big deal. They're tightening the market for certain sectors. It's not unusual in cyber or in any insurance to have market cycles. We have hard markets and soft markets that affect the availability and cost of insurance. Right now, markets are fairly soft generally, but cyber is a problem for certain segments, including particularly government, healthcare, utility segments, higher or education in general. I represent higher education. What else are cyber insurers doing? They're pushing governments for some kind of backstop. They're pushing governments to become the insurer of last resort in case there is that massive systemic loss that could potentially cause individual or multiple insurers or industries to go insolvent, which, brings us to the too big to fail problem that we saw in the 80s. They're also looking for new capital. So one of the things about cyber, because of all the uncertainty, there aren't a whole lot of players. There's lots and lots of property casualty insurers doing all the normal stuff, like property and general liability and all. But in cyber, no. These statistics vary, but just to give you an idea, the top 10 cyber insurers currently have something like 50% of the market, and the top 15 have something like 70%. So we don't have a lot of spread of risk, which is the foundation of how insurance works. And with that few companies involved, we need more capacity. So they're looking for new ways to get money. Right now, one of the places they're looking at is something sort of complicated called insurance-linked securities. Kind of a cool thing. It's a way you can go out to investors in the marketplace and say, hey, we got something you can invest in. And it works basically like this. An insurer is looking for more capacity may sell something called a catastrophe bond or something similar. They'll sell $50 million worth of securities to general investors. And they promise the investors that a year from now, we'll pay you back your principal plus interest, as long as a particular insurance threshold event does not occur. So if the threshold event does not occur, you get your money and your interest. But what is a threshold event? The insurance companies are trying to protect themselves against the big catastrophic losses. So that threshold event could be, however they specifically define it, some kind of, let's say, a $300 million major loss. And so what the ILS does, it says, if this kind of loss is defined exceeds 300 million or more, then your 50 million helps us pay the claims. If we don't need it all, at the end of the year, we'll give you what's left. So that's the gamble for the investor, but many investors are willing to take that risk under the right circumstances. So it's a new source of capital. Finally, AI. AI is good and bad. The problem for insurers, what makes insurance run is the ability to accurately forecast losses. When you can do that, you know how much you're going to pay, you can plan for it, put in your profit margins, administrative costs, everything's fine. Can't do that with cyber, but they can use new AI and new modeling to help better predict, but it's imperfect. And unfortunately, those same tools can be used by the bad guys.
Ross, where were you 7 years ago when I was trying to learn about cyber insurance? Because that was one of the best, most comprehensive breakdowns, and everything you said was 100% correct. I would just add on a little bit to that. Some of us in the room were involved in the incentives work back in 2012, 2013 to see if the cyber insurance market could drive better cyber hygiene. It was a highly immature industry back then. It has taken its knocks over ransomware, and I think we are finally starting to see them adapting a more, several other panels today have talked about resilience. I finally started to adapt less of an avoiding data breach approach and more of a building more resilient, more cyber resilient company approaches, which is actually now finally starting to align insurance and underwriting incentives back with actual financial loss. So I think to your point, like there's a lot of exciting futures out there. Real quick, as we're coming up on time, Valecia, Aaron, I know we've all talked about some cool ideas about how we think the insurance industry might be able to leverage the blueprint. What's your top way? What do you think the insurance industry should look at or know about the blueprint?
You want to go first, Aaron? Okay. I mean, I don't know if I could actually add anything of value because you guys are the experts and I don't work in the cyber insurance industry, but I would say that, if cyber insurers can get behind pushing the needle of organizations to practice cyber hygiene, that's where the gold is, right? Because it starts with the organization. I love that we have regulations. I love that that's a part of, and driving force of people trying to be better about hygiene because it's a forcing function. But the reality is that it only goes so far. It's not the silver bullet. You need the organizations to do more, right? Because regulations don't cover everything from A to Z. There is no universal regulation, as we know. And so I think that's where it needs to start. It needs to start with the organization. But we also, I think, as a country, need to understand that there's certain industries that just don't have the resources, like education, that are getting hit really hard. And how do we, not only what resources do we need to give them, but how do we help them get there is the key too, right? It's not just about putting the paper on the desk. It's about giving them sort of the helping hand as to how to get there.
Well said. Cyber poverty is a real issue. Aaron.
I won't go into too much. I'll basically say this goes for not only the cyber insurers, but every single person in this room. We need to demystify it, ransomware. I mean, if you look what happened a couple of weeks ago, Starlink lost connections and their internet went down. Everybody on Twitter, oh, it's a ransomware attack, it's a cyber attack. No, it was a simple certificate that wasn't renewed. So everybody automatically jumps to everything's ransomware. Ransomware is bad, of course it's bad, but we need to get to better common language. The cyber insurers can help by using simpler terms and language. I know that's tough for the industry, but use simpler terms in their explanations. The private sector vendors can do the same. Every single person in here can do that same thing. We've talked about some amazing concepts today and some amazing initiatives. We need to find a way to bring that back to common language from Maine to Missouri and Alaska to Alabama. Like, we need to talk to all these communities. It is Small Business Week. I'll remind everybody in this room. So if you're on Twitter, you're on any of the social media platforms, you're sending out any communications this week, send something out about the blueprint, send something out about what we're doing here. I go as far, I've got pages and pages of notes, and I'm going to summarize this all on the blog later for me. But we need to be the best small town cheerleaders we can for what we're doing. And if you hear something in a conversation with a small business, if you're at the Chamber of Commerce or you're at a small business event and you hear something that's being said that's wrong, step in and correct them. Educate them. Educate every small business you can talk to. If you're standing at your son or daughter's soccer practice and there's a small business owner, ask them what they're doing. That's where I'll leave it. So.
Can I add one quick thing on that?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Because I'm like, I love what you said, Aaron. I just want to add to that. So coming from the realm of incident response, I want to foot stomp on what you said, because the problem isn't, there's a lot of people that obviously don't want to share. They're scared. They think they're going to get shamed. And the thing is that here's the detriment of not sharing. You don't share. You keep it in your close little quarters. Your employees have no idea what's going on because you're not sharing any information at all with anyone, even if it's vague. PR gets a hold of it. Somebody at the soccer game hears about it. It's on social media. And suddenly it's what you once tried to control becomes an uncontrollable beast. Okay. And I've seen this happen. I actually had somebody call me and they're like, did you leak that we had a ransomware attack? This is years ago. I'm like, no, I did not. Like, but did you communicate with your constituents that something was going on? Well, no. Perhaps you should have done that, because that's what happens, right? We are in the realm of social media, and Elizabeth is telling me I have 0 minutes, so I'm going to shut up. But sorry.
Well, thank you, Valecia. I want to say thank you to Aaron, Valecia, and Ross. All of your guys' support and help over the past year on this. And Ross, thank you for sharing demystifying cyber insurance for us. And thank you once again to IST for hosting us and all your leadership here today.